Hello, welcome to Asian Cinema Season, where I'll be talking about a boatload of films from the continent of Asia over the next few weeks. I hope that you keep up and watch all the videos I'm putting out. No pressure though, there's going to be a lot of them. And this is the first official review, the first official video, and there'll be lots of different types of videos, as I've already said in previous videos. But this is going to be my first recent Asian film review. I want to do quite a few of these, look into what the continent of Asia is putting out currently, like recent films. And one of those countries I feel like needs more attention from me as a film watcher is Japan. I'm a huge fan of Japanese cinema. That is my preferred country when it comes to Asia. I mean, it has a proven track record with fantastic directors like Akira Kurosawa, Masaki Kobayashi, and Hayao Miyazaki. Look at the anime movies as well, and there's been so many other great ones that I've had the privilege of watching and thinking, wow, this country has a real interesting sensibility when it comes to storytelling in film that I really am grabbed by and gravitate towards. And I haven't really watched a lot of recent Japanese films. I think that Korea is a country that over the past few years has really made a name for itself in recent films and has gotten acclaim with recent films and recent Korean directors getting quite a bit of name recognition. But recent Japanese films don't really get talked about that much at all over here, so I wanted to dive into that world, and that's what this part of Asian Cinema Season is going to be, me looking at newer releases. And the first one, this is a special film to me. I watched this yesterday and it's still fresh in my mind. I'm still feeling the effects of it, and so I'm going to talk about it in this video. It is close-knit from this year, in fact. I think it's released in most countries this year, or it was released in some other countries last year. Directed and written by Naiko Ogigami, a female director. And I was not blown away by the film, but I was bowled over by the film. And I'm going to talk about the story and be as spoiler-free as possible and kind of round up my thoughts as quickly as possible before I get to a spoiler section, which even then I don't think really spoils that much, but I need to talk about why this film was special to me. So it's about a young girl called Tomo, who is played brilliantly by a young actress named Rinka Kakihara. I had to give her a name check because I think that she was phenomenal in the film. I think she's around 13, 14, her character is around 11 years old, and Tomo is a struggling kid. Her mother is often away. She's a single mother, and she comes home drunk at night, and she'll just leave money for Tomo to take care of herself. One day her mother leaves again, and Tomo seeks solace in her uncle, Makio. And so her uncle takes her into his home, but this time, and it's kind of hinted that this has happened on more than one occasion, where Tomo's mother has gone away and she has to stay with her uncle. It's not really planned or anything like that. Her mother will just leave. Very irresponsible. So she goes to her uncle, and her uncle says, well, now this time you're coming back to my place, there's going to be something a little bit different. I'm now living with someone. So Tomo gets to meet her uncle Makio's new girlfriend, Rinko, who is a transgender woman. This character is played by the actor Toma Ikuta, and again I think he deserves name credit because he was stunning in the movie as this transgender woman who used to be a man and had made the transition, had the surgeries done, all that kind of thing, and was living with a man. And I love the idea that Makio says to Tomo that, you know, because she asks him, like, how did you meet this woman? And he's like, well, I met her when she was caring for my mother, you know, it's a caring home, and there was just something about her, and I kind of fell in love at first sight. And it was only then that I realized that she was, in fact, someone who used to be a man, but I couldn't help the way I felt. I was in love with this person, and that was that. And I think there's something so heartwarming in that, and there's a lot of heartwarming elements to this movie. And the majority of the movie pretty much sees Tomo, this young girl, finding a new family in her uncle and his girlfriend, and this new family unit begins to form. And you know, you would expect it to follow the formula of Tomo being very like, whoa, wait a minute, who's this transgender woman? You know, like, oh, you're weird, you know, and it doesn't really go that way. There is resistance there, but it's only because Tomo is so used to being alone. She's so used to fending for herself. She's built up this hardened shell around her that accepting a mother figure, which is something she so desperately wants, is something that's still difficult for her, especially with the added kind of weirdness of it being someone who used to be a man, and that is very much touched on as well. with Rinko trying to break down the walls and kind of be very transparent about it and say to Tomo, you know, I had these breasts put in and that kind of thing. And there's a very funny scene when he explains to her what happened to his penis. It's a funny film. I was laughing, and halfway through I had to just turn it off and take a 5-minute break because my eyes were bugging the hell out of me, because I wasn't crying, but my eyes were constantly welling up with emotion. Now, it is a film that you would very much classify as a melodrama in a lot of ways, but unlike other melodramas I've seen, especially ones from the country of Japan, I don't feel like this one is as over the top. I don't feel like this one is as overplayed. I feel like it really comes from a real naturalistic place. And Naiko Ogigami, the director who also wrote the film, I think did a fantastic job laying it out, both from the directorial standpoint and from the writing standpoint. I just loved everything about this film, and it just gave me such a wide variety of emotions and made me connect with something on a fairly deep level. I think that's to do with my own history as well, because, well, I'll leave that till the end of the video, in fact. But I would highly recommend this. I sadly don't feel like this is going to be a film many people are going to try and find and watch and see and buy the Blu-ray and things like that, but I would highly recommend it if you're into dramas that deal with family issues but also deal with different kinds of issues, like this transgender thing. I felt like, again, this film could have very easily been something that was really hammering home the transgender thing and having a lot of prejudice in the film, and it really isn't like that, and I so appreciated that. It felt so refreshing and honest and human to me that, yes, you know, Rinko didn't live a completely normal life. There were some people out there who didn't really accept her as a woman, but it wasn't really done to death, you know. There's a fantastic scene, and I guess you can kind of see that it would go that way, where towards the end of the film, someone is not happy with the fact that this young girl is being cared for by a man and a transgender woman, and so she calls the social services. So the social services turn up at the home and they're like, we want to see what's going on with this girl. And you're like, oh my god, this is where the second half of the film is going to go. It's going to be this custody battle and all that kind of thing. Child services turn up. They question Tomo on a few things. You know, you hurt? Have you been injured? You know, are you okay? And then Tomo gets hugged by Rinko, and they look at this transgender woman being a caring, you know, mother figure, and they don't say it, but the look on their faces is, okay, fair enough. And we never hear from the child services again. It's just such a, again, refreshing, because I thought it was going to turn into this big, like, transgender, you know, people can't be parents because they're, you know. And again, there's prejudice in the film, but I felt like it was so refreshing that it wasn't the crux of the movie, and it was more about, you know, this child who so desperately needed a mother and a father and a family, and it was so touching. And I can't tell you how much I loved the film. Made me very emotional, and I enjoyed it so much and loved the characters so much, but also that I appreciated that it dealt with it in what I felt was a realistic fashion. And by the end of the film, it ends on a note that maybe isn't the best thing to swallow as an audience member of a film that you've enjoyed and loved the characters, but it felt like it was true to the characters and the story and to real life, and so it just made it a much more believable and rich experience by the end of the film. So that's my thoughts on Close Knit. Now, if you feel like watching it, go check it out. Again, kind of melodrama, but I think it rises above being simply a melodramatic film, and I think it really has some value and a richness to the characters and the story. So I highly recommend it. Now, a few spoiler thoughts on the film, so you've been warned. Another thing I loved was the ending, which I didn't enjoy at first in some ways, but I soon realized how great it was. The end of the film sees Tomo's mother turn up again after a month of being completely absent, and she's like, okay, thanks for looking after her, come on, let's go home. And it's this great, and I love again how this film was directed, lots of long takes, and this was arguably the emotional climax of the movie. Well, not the emotional climax, I suppose, but like the what's the word, dramatic climax of the film. That's what it is. It's the dramatic climax of the film where Tomo's mother turns up, and it's just this one shot inside Makio and Rinko's house, or their apartment, I should say. And she's like, okay, let's go home. And Tomo just kind of stands there, and Makio, you know, her uncle, says, we want her to stay with us. We want to take her in. Rinko has grown to love her, and she wants to be her mother. And I loved how Makio, who's a character who is arguably the least interesting of the film, but I like how delicately the actor played him. You know, he just seemed like a very warm soul, and I liked that. It wasn't a character that was injected with any kind of big characteristic to make it stand out. He was simply just a nice guy, you know, and I think there's something to be said for that when it's done right. And he stood up for, you know, everyone involved in a lot of ways and said to his sister, look, you've been irresponsible. This isn't the first time it's happened. Tomo needs a family. And the mother's like, this is ridiculous. And I thought the actress who played Tomo's mother was fantastic because she so believably reacted to this, just incredulous. You're like, you must be joking. This woman, she's not even a woman, you know. And then Tomo just starts wailing on her mother and just lets out all this frustration and like, why haven't you been a mother to me? And then Tomo's mother breaks down and says, because I don't know how. And it was then that I realized that they planted the seeds, because we see the mother of Makio and Tomo's mother, Tomo's grandmother, who is suffering through, you know, dementia and Alzheimer's, is in a home and doesn't remember much, but we hear some of her backstory when she's sitting with Rinko, who works at the care home. And she talks about how her husband left. And so she's been through that trauma too. And a very big part of the film is the knitting, which Rinko does a lot, and she also passes it on to Tomo and says that she knits when she's angry, when she's pissed off, you know, which is, you know, obviously is hinted at whenever she's gone through the prejudice of people not accepting her as this transgender woman. Instead of getting angry and going into these outbursts, she went back and knitted and just slowly kind of inwardly kind of sucked in all of that emotion and tried to just work through it. And that's something that Tomo's grandmother did as well. But it's referenced that she knitted all this stuff for her kids, and her daughter, Tomo's mother, never took any of this knitted stuff that was made for her, which hints that she was someone who isn't receptive to that kind of life of just pushing things away and trying to move on. She very much kind of dwells on her troubles, and obviously her husband has left, and so we understand why Tomo's mother is away all the time. We might not agree with it, we might think that she's a bitch, and I did. At first I was like, yeah, she's irresponsible, get out of there, let your daughter have a good family with these two people who very dearly care about her and can provide her with a loving family. But then I began to realize that, well, no, that the best option here is for the mother to change. You know, as much as it's idealistic to have Tomo have this wonderful life with her uncle and Rinko and to be adopted, and she clearly would have a fantastic life with people who she loved very much, and she very much grew to love Rinko as a mother figure. But what happens to the mother then? Does she just wallow for the rest of her life and die alone? I mean, it's a sad option for the mother no matter how much she's mistreated Tomo. So the best option, you know, as heartbreaking as it is for Tomo to go with her mother and for her mother to try and change. And that is what's hinted at, and it breaks Rinko's heart. And again, the performance by Toma Ikuta as this transgender woman was just so delicate and so sensitive and brilliant, just absolutely fantastic. I just thought he was wonderful in the film. And so Tomo goes back with her mother, and her mother is kind of, you know, she goes back and sees her mother, and we get kind of this thematic thing where this song has been passed down through each generation. We hear Tomo singing it, we hear her mother singing it, and her grandmother singing it, and it's a very nice little kind of almost nursery rhyme, and it just links the three women together. And the great hint at the end when Tomo comes home and she's kind of gutted that she's had to leave, but she wants to stay with her mum, and that felt realistic too, where the mother was about to leave and Tomo ran after her even though she'd just been hitting her, and she was just like, Mum, I want to go home with my mum. And you would, no matter how much your mother had mistreated you, no matter how much you've been through shit, you'd still want to be with your mum, you know, because that's just the nature, you know, it's just that thing that drives you, that instinct. You'd still want to, you know, stay true to your mum, no matter how much she pissed you off, she's your mum. So that again felt very true to me. And at the end, we have Tomo coming home, and her place, which is normally very messy and stuff all over the place, has been neatly tidied, and everything is in its place. And it's just a hint, just a morsel of a hint that maybe her mother is trying to change. And that's enough, you know, and who knows what will happen after that. And the kind of silver lining in all of that is that she's not going to not see her uncle again, and therefore she's not going to not see Rinko again. And they would definitely be a big part of her life moving forward from that, and the bond that they all shared and had in that very highly concentrated period of time together is something that won't go away, you know. And as she grows up, she'll go over there on the weekend and stay there and still kind of have a great relationship with them. But it's something that needs to be worked on with her mother. And I really liked that conclusion because it was sad, you know, and it was heartbreaking to see Rinko kind of in tears at the end, where she and again it's to do that thing where she says to Tomo that the only thing that she can't do, you know, she's had this surgery, she's had breasts put in, she's had a vagina put in, but she can't give her boyfriend, she can't give the love of her life a child, because biologically it just can't happen. So I like to think that from this experience they would have gone on to adopt, and the experience was something that was very eye-opening for that couple, you know, again, which is interesting. We have this man and this transgender woman enter into a relationship, and obviously things aren't as clear and cut and dry as a normal relationship would be. But I like how it was portrayed as this normal relationship, because that is what it can be and should be portrayed as. And I like how Rinko had all those female characteristics you would expect, you know, the way that she dresses and the way that she acts, very caring, very mothering, but also she likes a beer with dinner and things like that. So there's these interesting beats of the character that worked very well into the overall story. And the knitting, I loved how that played into it, and how she's knitting basically these woolen like penises, and the idea of everyone having 108 desires. I think it's to do with Buddhism or something, and so she's knitting these 108 penises to burn and finally be free of that life, and to legally declare herself as female and all that kind of thing. There's also a side plot of one of Tomo's friends in school. Well, he becomes a friend, but at first Tomo is actually, you know, this young girl. She's quite prejudiced towards this young boy because he's gay. You know, and I don't know whether it's supposed to be kind of laid out that he's gay, or that he feels like he's a woman. I mean, that could very much tie in with the transgender thing, but either way, he's feeling things that, you know, are not completely accepted by people, including Tomo, until she eventually realizes that when she lives with Rinko, this transgender woman, that it's, you know, it's all the same, you know, we're people. And so she learns to be a friend to this young boy. And he goes through quite a lot of shit as well. His mother is completely against the fact that he has feelings for a boy in school. And at the end of his storyline in the movie, his mother very much is still against him and says, "You've been very sinful in feeling this about another boy." But Tomo is there as his friend to tell him, "Your mother is wrong, totally wrong." And I like that again. It wasn't this neat movie thing where the mother realizes the error of her ways and says, "Oh my god, yeah, of course you can be gay, of course you can be transgender, or whatever." No, this mother is going to be stuck in her ways because that's the way people are. But you have your friends who can help you through it. You have other people who can help you through it and can help you to live the life the way that you want to. And so, again, I just love the way this film treated the subject matter in a realistic way and not in a typical movie way where everything kind of gets wrapped up neatly in the end and everyone sees the error of their ways and the prejudice is wiped clean, because that just doesn't work in real life. Okay, so I forgot to kind of mention this when I first recorded the review, because I mentioned earlier about how there was something that I really related to in the movie, and that was the idea of this mother figure who Tomo really didn't have that much because her mother was always away. But flip that round to a father figure. For me, my dad was someone who wasn't always around all the time. I mean, he did his best, don't get me wrong. I mean, I had it much better than a lot of people, but when I moved away from home to another country with my mum and my stepdad, that was kind of my new family. And I loved my stepdad in a lot of ways, and I didn't like him in a lot of other ways. And at one point, you know, my mum and my stepdad, they split up and he was gone. It was just me and my mum, and we were living in this army garrison town, which was just emblematic of why we were there, was because of my stepdad, but he was no longer there. And she saw a few new people, and she saw this one guy called Ed. And I loved Ed. I loved Ed. He was that father figure that I needed, and I loved him so much. And I don't know if he was around for a few weeks or a few months, but it was such a highly charged period of time where I was just so happy to have this father figure in my life. And then they split up. And I said to my mum, "Am I ever going to see Ed again?" And she said, "No, probably not." And that was heartbreaking to me. That really was. And I never did see him again. And it just is what it is. You know, it's just one of those things. But you do get over it. And so at the ending, when Tomo has to separate from Rinko, you know, it's heartbreaking for her. But she's going to her mum. And hopefully to a better life that she should have had to begin with. But for her, she gets to see Rinko again. You know, and that's kind of, again, the silver lining where You know, it's not like she'd never see her uncle again, and I could very much imagine the character of Tomo going and sleeping over for the weekend and still having a great time. And again, I would like to think that Rinko and Makio would eventually adopt a child together, and that would make me quite happy as a big fan of those characters. But yeah, that part of it just really resonated with me, I think, when I thought back to that time when I really needed that father figure. And something a lot of people don't have is that father figure or that mother figure. You know, it can be unfortunate. And again, don't get me wrong, I had it much better than a lot of people, but it's something that I did go through, and it was raw when I had that taken away from me. But you know, you do get over it as well. So while it might be heartbreaking to see Tomo and Rinko so distraught at the end of the film, you know that they would get over it, you know, and life would move on, and they would still have a relationship together, and that time they had together would be special. And those fake breasts made out of wool that Rinko made for Tomo was kind of her saying, I'll always be there for you to do this kind of stuff if you want it, and that's a great thing. There's really funny moments in the film. Again, I can't praise the performance of the young actress enough who played Tomo. The moments where she's sad and upset, I just bought 110%. That's probably where I got the most emotional. But also when she's happy and when she's having fun, again, was so utterly believable. And one of my favorite moments of the film, like I reacted so hugely to this, is when she comes home one day to Makio and Rinko's place, and she's really upset. She thought she saw her mother. She went back home. Her mother wasn't there. She has a big breakdown. She comes back. She doesn't say anything to her uncle and Rinko, and she jumps into the cupboard and kind of sits on all the bedding. You know, she wants to be alone and free of everyone. I think she even says to Rinko, "You're not my mother." You know, so it's kind of just stay away from me. The next day, in the middle of the day, she's up playing Wii. You know, and she's like having a good time, and she's like, yeah, she's eating some snacks, and then Rinko comes in. And she turns off the Wii. She runs back into the cupboard to kind of, you know, keep up the kind of performance that she's in a bad mood. And I don't know, I mean, to me, I just feel like that's something every kid has done, where they've been in a bad mood or something, and they're still trying to convey it, but once people have left the house, they go play on the video games, you know, and then when someone comes back in, it's like, oh no, I'm still in a bad mood, jump under the covers or whatever. And I thought it was such a true, again, to overuse it, human moment that I was literally clapping. Like, that's just so brilliant. I don't think I've seen that really in a film before. Maybe I have, but it felt like it was just so believable. And again, just I like the realistic edge on this film. It doesn't feel too much like a movie, and that has a lot to do with the long takes that I think were great. There's a fantastic scene between Tomo and her uncle Makio where they're sitting outside the care home next to this river with these fish, and the camera is very slowly kind of panning around them. It takes like about 5 minutes, and it's just such a, again, wonderful naturalistic scene. And I feel like I'm just praising this film to high heavens, but I mean, I really loved it. It's one of my favorite films of the year. I adored everything about it, and I think it's just a fantastic celebration of family and of being who you are, and not, you know, what people kind of would stray you away from doing because it's not normal. You know, it really champions that without being an overtly kind of preachy movie, I think. So yeah, fantastic job by the writer and director Naiko Ogigami. And again, the two, for me, lead actors in Toma Ikuta and Rinka Kakihara as Tomo and Rinko, although I flipped that round. Either way, just brilliant performances from those two. And also the woman who played Tomo's mother, I thought was fantastic. So there we go. Got great cinematography, you know, understated, but, you know, framed very well. And just, well, what can I say, I suppose? I've waffled on for far too long, and I can't really imagine anyone even watching this all the way through, because it's just one of those obscure movies that not a lot of people are interested in. But I implore you, if you've watched this far and you still haven't seen the film, I implore you to watch it and check it out. And my final note would be when Tomo and Rinko say goodbye to each other, and she's about to get in the taxi, and you can tell they're both gutted by this, but it's just the way things have got to be. She's got to go back to her mum, you know, she's got to try and figure it out, she's got to try and sort this thing out, or her mother has to, you know. And it could very easily, again, in any other movie, you know, in a more pedestrian kind of movie, it could be this, you know, I love you, you know, you'll always have a home here, you know, you can always come back, or, you know, I'll always be there for you. Nothing, no words, they just hug. And, you know, Tomo, little tear comes down her cheek, she doesn't say anything. She gets a gift from Rinko, and she comes home and she opens it up, and it's the knitted woolen fake breasts, which again links to the story. I won't even go into that, but I like that kind of idea too. And we actually got a little bit of a kind of mini movie in Rinko's backstory as a young boy at school, and how he was struggling with the way he was feeling before he became a transgender woman, and how accepting his mother was, and how she knitted him fake breasts, and this young boy excitedly puts on a bra. And again, just such a delicate moment that just felt so realistic and heartwarming and beautiful, you know, just a celebration of embracing that, you know, that differentness, but also just being true to yourself and being accepted by a parent. And you get that contrast between the young boy in Tomo's school, whose mother is completely, you know, against anything out of the ordinary. You know, you can't have feelings for a boy, that's sinful. And then you have Rinko, whose mother was completely and utterly accepting. So you get the contrast of different ways of dealing with that kind of thing. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I feel really bad that I've waffled on for so long, but man, I love this film. Man, I needed to talk about it, and that's all there is to it. So, close-knit, phenomenal movie. Definitely a new favourite, I think. So, yeah, there we go. It's been a great start so far to Asian cinema season. There'll probably be a lot more films lower down on the scale than that, but I'm happy to kick off with a film that I absolutely adored, and hope to get some more gems out of more recent films that come out, because, you know, it's easy to go back and look at the classics like Kurosawa films and just be blown away by them, but I find it almost more impressive sometimes when it's just this family drama, you know, that really just draws you in so much. I mean, yeah, the feelings that I got out of this movie were just so potent, and I live for movies like this. I live for movie experiences like this, where, you know, I keep checking the time, like, how much is left, you know, an hour left, oh yes, you know, how much is left, 20 minutes, oh no, I want more time with these characters, you know. That's when you know a movie has really just got you hook, line and sinker. So, yeah, I will leave it there, finally, thankfully. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Stay tuned for all of the Asian cinema-related reviews and videos coming over the next few weeks. I hope you enjoy, hope you stick around, and I'll see you with those.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans and calling into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you.